Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our morning Bhagavatam class. This morning the class will be on Canto 1, Chapter 9, verse 21. And we are in the chapter entitled Passing of Bhishma Dev in the Presence of Lord Krishna. And the class will be given by Pariksit Prabhu from ISKCON Harrisburg. Without further delay, we will go into class and it's all yours. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Vivadadari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Vivadadari Yashodanandana Vajajanaranyana Yashodanandana Vajajanaranyana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Vallabha Vivadadari Yashodanandana Vajajanaranyana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Rama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Radhe Jaya Radha Sharad Bihari Radha Sharad Bihari Radhe Jaya Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radhe Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gauranikai Jaya Gauranikai Jaya Gauranikai Jaya Gauranikai Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Nitai Gora Haribo 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 Gora Haribo Nitai Gora Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo Jaya Om Vishnu Param Hansa Privajikacharya Restored Terasata Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Param Hansa Privajikacharya Restored Terasata Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anandi Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Charge Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivachari Gaura Bhaktavinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Mathura Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Jagannath Swami ki jai. Ganga Mahi ki jai. Jamuna Mahi ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande. Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada. Namo Shukadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhuttali. Srimad Bhakti Swami Itanam. Namaste Krishna Vidaya Prabhupada Chittakum. Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Swami. Narayana Namaskritya Narom Tevam Narotamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tito Jayam Udirayat Nashya Prayesva Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavata Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna and good morning to everyone. This class this morning is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, in text 21. Sarvatmana samadrisho yadvayasya nahankrite tatkritam mati vaisamyam Niravadasya nakwajit Savatmana samadrisho Hyadvayasya nahankrite Tatkritam mati vaishamyam Niravadasya nakwajit Savatmana samadrisho Hyadvayasya nahankrite Tatkritam mati vaishamyam Niravadasya nakwachid. Hare Krishna.
Sarvatmanah samadrisho yadvayasyana kritehe tatkritam mati vaishamyam niravadyasya nakvachit.
Sarvatmana samadrisho yadvayasya nahankrite tatkritamati vaishyamyam niravadyasya nakvachit.
Thank you.
सर्वात्मनः समदृशो यतयसायनहं कृते तत्कृतं मति वैषमयं निर्वत्यस्य न क्वचित्. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Okay, so we do word for word now. Sarva Atmana, of one who is present in everyone's heart. Samadrisha, of one who is equally kind to one and all. He certainly. Advayasya, of the absolute. Anahankrite, free from all material identity or false ego. Tat kritam, everything done by him. Mati, consciousness. Vaisanyam, differentiation. Niravadhyasya, freed from all attachment. Na, never. Kvachit, at any stage. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Being the absolute personality of Godhead, he is present in everyone's heart. He is equally kind to everyone. He's free from the false ego of differentiation. Therefore, whatever he does is free from material inebriety. He is equibalanced. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Because he is absolute, there is nothing different from him. He is Kaivalya. There is nothing except himself. Everything and everyone is the manifestation of his energy, and thus he is present everywhere by his energy, being none different from it, just as the sun is present wherever there is sunshine. The sun is identified with every inch of the sun's rays and every molecular particle of the rays. Similarly, the Lord is distributed by his different energies. He is Paramatma, or the Supersoul, present in everyone as the supreme guidance, and therefore he is already the chariot driver and counsel of all living beings. When he therefore exhibits himself as chariot driver of Arjuna, there is no change in his exalted position. It is the power of devotional service only that demonstrates him as the chariot driver or the messenger. Since he has nothing to do with the material conception of life, because he is the absolute spiritual identity, there is for him no superior or inferior action. Being the absolute personality of Godhead, he has no false ego, and so he does not identify himself with anything different from him. The material conception of ego is equibalanced in him. He does not feel, therefore, inferior by becoming the chariot driver of his pure devotee. It is the glory of the pure devotee that only he can bring about service from the affectionate Lord. Om Gyanati Virandasya Gyana Gyana Shalakaya Chakshu Umalitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Mano Mistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padatikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Vita Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaisnavam Cha Jatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Radvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lita Sri Vishakam Vitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishavanusute Devi Paramami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhibhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesha Sunyavari Paschatya Deshatarani Namo Mahapadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gurunatase Namaha Ananda Lilamaya Vigrahaya Vimate Divecha Vishundaraya Tasmi Mahaprema Raspadaya Chaitanya Tindraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Tindraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Tindraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Tindraya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna. The translation of the text again. Being the absolute personality of Godhead, he is present in everyone's heart. He is equally kind to everyone, and he is free from a false ego of differentiation. Therefore, whatever he does is free from material inebriety. He is equibalanced. Hare Krishna. So this is quite an in-depth description of the unlimited and absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Many times in the Shastra, you see the pure devotees of the Lord praising Krishna. Even if they wanted to ask something of Krishna, They will praise him first. They will talk about his unlimited energies. They will talk about his dominance. And absolutely, he should be. He is all. Everything is present in the Lord, and he is present in everyone's heart. As it's being described here, the absolute personality of Godhead is present in everyone's heart. That is present as the Paramatma. He is equally kind to everyone, and he is free from a false ego of differentiation. Kindness is connected to love. When a person is loving, they will naturally be kind. And the Lord is the supreme in that department. No one is as loving as he is. And at the same time, he is split his wonderful energy into the personality of Radharani to experience even more love. Again, he does things according to what he desires, because he is, in fact, the true ego. And all apart from him that try to exhibit ego have only false ego. So in that sense, it's been described, he is freed from false ego of differentiation. He is absolute. When we differentiate based on material things, usually. But the Lord is outside all of that because he's the owner of everything. For him, it's all, in one sense, the same, a part of his energy. Everything you describe. So whatever he does is not connected with a separated energy. The separated energy is used in keeping us going, those of us in the material world, with the view, the aim, that we will finally turn to the Lord and come to the Lord, and therefore go back home away from the material world. That he would like us to do, but because we have our own free will, if you will, then we turn whenever we want to, and if we have not turned towards him, then we continue in the suffering. We are very fortunate as devotees to know these and to have such information about the Supreme Personality of Godhead available to us. We are very fortunate that some people are not even, connected at all to this type of knowledge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is absolute. And Srila Prabhupada describes in the purport, because he's absolute, there's nothing different from him. So the holy name is Krishna. When we chant the holy name, we will connect with Krishna. When we chant the holy name, then we will get used to chanting the holy name more and more and more and more. And we'll never get tired from it. Srila Prabhupada says, you can chant any other name, and after a while, you're going to get tired. If you're thirsty and you want water, you can chant water, 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 but it will not free you of the thirst. And after a while, you get tired of saying water, water, water anyway. But the Lord is him. The Lord's name is him. Therefore, when we chant Hare Krishna, you never get tired. Not only that, the more you chant Hare Krishna, the more you connect with Krishna, because the name is him. Therefore, that connection to him becomes stronger and stronger, the deeper, and the more attentively we chant the holy name. This is our fortune, to connect with the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the mercy and permission of the spiritual master. So, Srila Prabhupada also says, there's nothing except himself. Nothing. Without Krishna, there is no existence. Material energy is from him, spiritual energy is him, all of that him. From his different expansions, the material energy come. The different leelas are from him, and Lord Brahma says he's the cause of all causes. So there's nothing except the Lord, and that is the proof. Everything and everyone, Srila Prabhupada says, is the manifestation of his energy. And thus he is present everywhere through his energy. And because he's absolute, he's none different from his energy. And Srila Prabhupada gives the analogy, the sun is present wherever there's sunshine. He said the sun. And then we can see, because of the clarity of things and the revelation of things, because the sun is present there. The sun is also equal. It wouldn't shine in one particular place more than another place. That doesn't happen. It gives sunshine like that, uniform. So everyone and everything is a manifestation of his energy. Well, in the material world that we're in at this time, there are 8,400,000 types of material bodies that the soul can dwell in for a period of time. That's it said, 84 lakhs. The lakh is 100,000. So 84 lakhs is 84 times 100,000, which is 8,400,000. Now, of that, 4 lakhs or 400,000 are human being types. At this point, we are in a type of human body, one of the 400,000. The other day, I was listening to a lecture by Guru Govinda Maharaj, and he was describing all human beings are not the same, but the form is the same. Human beings, one head, 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 nose, and so on. The difference is in consciousness. And then he proceeded to describe the types of consciousness in all 8,400,000 types of physical bodies. So there are layers of consciousness. So we'll talk about the layers and then get us to the point where we are in order to describe how fortunate we are, so we take this consciousness even more seriously. So the difference is in consciousness. Now, for all 84 lakhs of types of bodies, there are 5 layers of consciousness. The lowest is Avrita Chetana, covered consciousness, then Sankuchita Chetana, shrunken consciousness, then Mukulita Chetana, budding consciousness, then Vikachita Chetana, blossoming consciousness, then Purna Vikachita Chetana, completely blossoming consciousness. So I'll say the English part of it so you can follow through. Covered consciousness, covered. The consciousness is covered. How much can that particular individual tell, or that living entity tell? Covered consciousness. Then the next is not covered, but shrunken consciousness. So the consciousness is little, or made little. Then budding consciousness. So budding consciousness, budding means coming out from a small stage. Budding consciousness. So that's better than shrunken consciousness, or even covered consciousness. Covered consciousness is the lowest. Then blossoming. After budding is blossoming consciousness. Not really, if you think like a flower bud, and then finally it opens up. And so something more beautiful is coming out, or something more significant is coming out. And completely blossoming consciousness. Completely. Completely means that, like, again, if we take the flower as an example, when the flower is opened up fully, then that's completely blossomed. So, out of the 84 lakhs of material bodies, 80 lakhs 8 million are non-human bodies. And these 80 lakhs have only covered and shrunken consciousness. That's as far as they go. The 4 lakhs of human bodies, the 400,000, they have the budding, blossoming, and completely blossoming consciousness. So that is the distinction between human bodies and the non-human body type. The covered and the shrunken consciousness belong to the animals and the birds and the insects and the trees. And by the way, the trees are 2 million, 20 lakhs. The trees and mountains are all categorized in the same. Because the mountains also have, now in Kali Yuga, the mountains you don't see the mountains move, but the mountains were in fact able to go from one place to another in the ages before this Kali Yuga. So human bodies type have budding consciousness, blossoming consciousness, and completely blossoming consciousness. The completely blossoming consciousness is the highest, and that is complete Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness. So when a devotee or when a human person in a human body comes, a soul in a human body comes to Krishna consciousness, that is the highest consciousness, completely blossoming consciousness. And that is the stage where the human being now begins to connect with Krishna and see the fortune that's there in connecting with Krishna. So that's complete Krishna consciousness. So by the mercy of Guru and Gauranga, that's where we are. And that's why so few people are at that particular level. Srila Prabhupada one time was asked, so if Krishna consciousness is such a saving situation and an eye-opening situation and a wonderful spiritual situation that connects us with Krishna, how come so many people are not part of it? You would think that they would get to that consciousness, because a man can think properly, a woman can think properly, therefore they would be in that consciousness. So Prabhupada says, yes, it is a higher consciousness. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but he also said that when you're selling diamonds in a store, how many people come? Diamonds are most precious, but how many people come to get diamonds? People will normally buy something that's cheaper and live with it. Therefore, the highest is Krishna consciousness. As Govinda Maharaj describes here, the kind of consciousness is a completely blossoming consciousness. That is Krishna consciousness. And the pure devotee represents a completely blossoming Krishna consciousness. The completely blossoming consciousness, and therefore the description about Krishna is made as important and as descriptive as possible by the intelligence of the pure devotee. And you're seeing here, being the absolute personality of Godhead, he's present in everyone's heart, he's equally kind to everyone. Where do you find a place where people are equally kind? It's hard to even get that. He's free from false ego of differentiation. Whatever he does, he's spiritual and he's equibalanced. The Lord is equal. We have to connect with him. When we find ourselves at a low ebb, then it means our connection is not strong enough. And that will be there from time to time because Maya's department never goes on a break. Sometimes we will get challenged, and sometimes we do need to take stock to see how things are going. And with our intelligence, try very hard to, and the Lord will help us, remember the things that are wrong or remember the things that we're supposed to be doing. Therefore, we can check ourselves and bring ourselves back to being centered rather than being on one side, especially the side of Maya. So that intelligence is there, the consciousness is there, that Krishna has given us so that we can always get out of problems. And the greatest way to do that, and the way in which Krishna opens up for us to get out of that problem, is to hear. When we hear more and more and more and more, and Krishna also is in everyone's heart, so he helps us with remembrance. Things that we've heard already, when we're going off, then Krishna says, then he, in his kindness, he will reveal this part of, remember, you heard this? This is what you're not doing, or this is what you should be doing that you're not yet, and that's why you're feeling down spiritually. Learn from it, reminds us like that, because we have blossoming consciousness to completely blossoming consciousness. So those who are in human bodies, but not connecting with Krishna, we put them in a budding consciousness. They are not animals. They are not having covered and shrunken consciousness, even though sometimes some people act like they have covered consciousness. But still, a human with the intelligence can always ask the question, why am I suffering? Why am I here? Why are things going on the way they are? But in Kali Yuga, animal kind of consciousness is almost prevalent in so many places. I mean, the people who are supposed to be doing the leadership, the politics of different nations are covered by the ego so badly that they're probably acting even in covered and shrunken consciousness when they're supposed to be human. So a completely blossoming consciousness person is one in complete Krishna consciousness, believes in Krishna fully. So Krishna is Paramatma, or the super soul, present in everyone. So as we move from one body to another, the super soul goes with us. Now, if that's not kindness, I don't know what that is. The super soul goes with us in every one of these 8,400,000 type of bodies, especially the more fortunate 400,000 types of human bodies. The intelligence is there, it's more developed, and therefore with the super soul present, then he can, in fact, that person, that particular living entity has a chance to go back to Godhead, literally to free himself from all kinds of suffering. So the Lord is Paramatma, present as the supreme guidance now. So Srila Prabhupada has described that in many, many lectures. The super soul is present. He permits us in things that we want to do. He also guides. He gives counsel. Srila Prabhupada explains that when a person thinks about doing things that's wrong, the super soul in the heart will warn through the intelligence that there will be consequence. That thought will come. But because a person has a free choice, they may take that and advise themselves to be on the right side of doing things, or they may ignore that and go ahead and do whatever it is that is wrong or illegal. And finally, if it gets to a point where they got flagged for it or arrested, then there's consequence. And even if there isn't, Chitragupta, who is the deputy for Yamaraj, records everything. They record, everything is recorded for all living entities who are in these human bodies, what's going on, what they're doing. Chitragupta is expert at recording. And so we have to take Krishna consciousness seriously, because when a person becomes a devotee, the super soul also looks at everything that the living entity is doing. So that's where we are. Already there's a big break that devotees get, because now were not based on karma anymore. Things that happen in our lives are to teach us lessons, especially the suffering types, to teach us lessons and also makes us want to go closer and closer and closer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's a natural thing that when somebody is feeling that they're suffering, they're going to want to get away from that suffering situation. Or if they're not gotten away yet because of the way the circumstance is, they're going to at least look forward to the time when they are away from it. And that's what Krishna wants us to be at in our consciousness. Look forward to the time when we would get out of this war situation that we're in and go back and enjoy an unlimited bliss in service to the divine couple. So the analogy was made in connection between the super soul and the service that Krishna gave to Arjuna, being the chariot driver in the Kurukshetra war. So as a super soul, he is already counseling all living beings who would listen. And just like we talked about, yes, you can do, but there's consequence. In every action, the intelligence kicks in through the help of the Paramatma who is watching. He's a chariot driver in that sense. Takes us because we go, he goes. We go to this body, he is in our body. And then he also gives us counsel. All we have to do is listen. So in the Battle of Kurukshetra, he was also, Krishna himself was the chariot driver of Arjuna, and he was also counseling Arjuna, what to and what not to. And it's very similar to the situation that we go through. Sometimes we hear good advice, but then it seems like we don't want to take the good advice. The war, the Kurukshetra war, was fought to get rid of demons, but also to get so much mercy from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because everybody that died there got elevated to a situation that was better than what they were in before. Now, in cases where Krishna was saying, but you have to do like this, Arjuna says, but based on the Kshatriya code, it's supposed to be this way. Oh, this person has challenged me, therefore I have to take on the challenge. This is how his son Abhimanyu died, because he was, in fact, distracted by two kings who, according to Duryodhana's plan, pulled him away from where that wheel trap was being set by Dronacharya. But Krishna allowed him to go. This is one instance where Krishna won, but he allowed him to go because Arjuna wanted to go. So then, in our lives, this is why, that's the connection. The connection is that when we sometimes are being advised on things that we shouldn't do and we want to do, then Krishna lets us do and experience what the trouble is after that. So in one sense, if you add that to things that we did before that we are suffering from, previous lives that we may be suffering from, we're talking generally now, then whatever is going wrong is from what we did before, or knowing the right thing, but not using our intelligence to do the right thing. And that's the sum total of our suffering. So actually, why are we going through suffering? Well, we only have ourselves to blame. When you think about it, we only have ourselves to blame. So even now, as devotees, we know, we hear, and we have to apply what we hear. Hearing alone is a big step forward to hear the scriptures or to read the scriptures. But more important is the application of it. We have to. And when we apply, Krishna gives us even more wisdom, the Vigyan. And guidance comes from within, from without, from situations. Many, 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 many things get set up for us to literally live a life that can be arguably, said to be miraculous. Because miracles are things where, you couldn't have figured it out, and it just happens. This is needed, that's needed to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Every prayer is heard. And therefore, prayers for service especially, Krishna arranges. You may see some difficulty, this is not there, that's not there, we have to do it this way. Krishna allows us to use our intelligence, to use the energies that he's given us. But then, as he's watching, he also leads the way. It's almost like, we know we are insignificant. And the whole process is like having a supreme, powerful parent, and the person wants to help serve the parent in some way, but they don't have all the tools. And so Krishna allows some of it to be done by the person. But as he's watching and smiling, sometimes we're stumbling, and sometimes they don't have the right tools to use. And then Krishna arranges, all right, take this. Take this. And you get all excited. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, now I'm able to do. Then they're happy. And Krishna is happy because Krishna then exchanges loving sentiments with the devotee because the devotee is willing to serve. So this is our situation. Yes, we are insignificant, but even as insignificant as we are also a tiny, tiny energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who have done the right thing by turning our heads towards Krishna consciousness and mind towards Krishna consciousness. Therefore, we get the help that way. So, devotional service is it. Devotional service is the way in which Krishna relates to his devotee. It is the power, Srila Prabhupada says, it is the power of devotional service only that demonstrates him as the chariot driver or the messenger. It's the power of devotional service. When we connect with devotional service, making that the priority in our lives, then we see the chariot driver, which means the leading of our life by Krishna, and the information that we need to go on through the messages of Krishna. It's all through that. When we say we are connecting ourselves with devotional service, because Krishna has also said in Bhagavad Gita, especially chapter 10, text 55, Bhaktya mam abhijananti, yavan yaschashmi tatvata, tato mam tatvatu gyadva, vishate tat anantaram. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. It comes only by devotional service, by bhakti. And when one is in full consciousness of me, by such devotion, then he can enter into the kingdom of God. So one can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in that completely blossoming consciousness, the full consciousness, then he can enter the kingdom of God. So we serve here, and getting back, when the time comes to leave the body, then we're also thinking about Krishna, and therefore we go back to the kingdom of God, Krishna Loka. It is very important to keep flooding our minds with Krishna every day. Japa is good to do. 16 rounds minimum is given by Srila Prabhupada. Minimum, so we can do more than that. And when we put our bead bags down and our japa beads down, we still should be chanting the holy name of the Lord. We still should be chanting the holy name of the Lord throughout the day. Because when we do that, then our minds are flooded with the holy name. We should chant the Lord of Chaitanya, the name of Lord Chaitanya, Gauranga, Gauranga, Gauranga. That is a merciful form, Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Padayati, the merciful, the most magnificent form of the Lord. And he has come to spread Krishna Prema. So, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna and his plenary portions cannot be understood by mental speculation, nor by the non-devotees. If anyone wants to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has to take the pure devotional service under the guidance of a pure devotee. Here's one important point. Sometimes says you hear pure devotional service, pure devotional service. Well, I'm not pure. So how can I perform pure devotional service? Well, I have limited senses. I have senses that are not that wonderful. In these physical bodies, that's the way it is. That's one of the 4 defects. So how does one perform pure devotional service in that situation? Well, take guidance from a pure devotee and do what the pure devotee says to do. So our practice based on the guidance from the spiritual master, who is a representative of Krishna, will help us to keep serving. And the more service that we do, the more that our minds become more excited, our hearts become more open, and then the purity slowly begins, the purity level slowly begins to go up and up and up. The challenges would come because Maya would put us in situations where we have to look at our weaknesses and see what to do about them. That is Maya's department. Maya is not out to keep us from going back to Krishna. Maya is out to expose the things that are blocking so that we can work on it, so that we can get purified and rise and rise and rise in the pleasure of connecting with Krishna. There's plenty of pleasure in connecting with Krishna. The material world does not give pleasure. Material happiness and distress are, in the end, not good. A person who is wise does not even engage in those kind of things. So, they are good, material things to only an extent, just necessary to keep the body going. But devotional service is, in fact, what will give us completely blossomed consciousness. Hare Krishna. So we'll stop here. The translation again. Being the absolute personality of Godhead, he is present in everyone's heart. He is equally kind to everyone, and he is free from the false ego of differentiation. Therefore, whatever he does is free from material inebriety. He is equibalanced. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for such a nice class, and especially, I guess I can start with my takeaway, because my appreciation for this class was that, helped reminding us to work on our hearing, the importance of hearing. That was very, a very good reminder for me that that I want to thank you for bringing it up. Hearing, devotional service, taking shelter of our rounds, our chanting, improving it, and I liked how you talked about the different consciousness, especially the shrinking one. That was pretty interesting. I never heard that before, so thank you for sharing that. It had me broaden my understanding actually of consciousness, the different level of consciousness. So thank you. Would like to ask devotees. We have about 6 minutes left. If devotees would like to ask a question, if you have any questions, a clarification, or if you would like to share a takeaway, we really would love to hear a takeaway if there's no question. It's always nice to hear each other's takeaways so that we also can learn from each other's takeaways and benefit from it. And and we learn from that too. So if anyone would like to jump right in, they can do so. Or put it in a chat if you're not able to speak, based on where you're at in, work or, anywhere, you can also put it in the chat, because I think Dr. Brett is at work. So that's why I made that comment. Please do put something, but would like to hear your reflections and your takeaways. Any thoughts? Yes, Mother Geeta.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All praise
Yay.
to Prabhupada. Thank you so much. It was such a wonderful lecture that I'm still thinking, and especially the different kinds of consciousness was an eye opener for me. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, I heard it yesterday actually. I was listening to, and Govinda Maharaj was explaining covered consciousness, shrunken consciousness. That's for animals and all the way down to the aquatics. Budding consciousness, humans, when they begin, the intelligence begins to kick in. Blossoming consciousness, when we begin to connect with Krishna consciousness, and completely blossoming consciousness, when we are convinced that Krishna and Krishna consciousness is the right place to be. And that is the highest type of consciousness. This was explaining. So wonderful. Hare Krishna. Any other
Right.
comments?
No, I'm trying to make budding, and you said the fourth one is blossoming and complete blossoming, right?
Blossoming is the fourth, and complete blossoming is when one comes to Krishna consciousness. Blossoming, you can put them as like a person who is religious. And understands God is there, and God understand that God is creator of everything, but the connection is not quite there in terms of a complete connection to be the servant of the servant of a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That only devotees understand. Even the Maya bodies are trying to be just one, even though they know that the material world is not the place that they're going to be happy at, but they don't have the connection. So it's not complete for Maya bodies.
I made
But
my
for
note.
devotees, it is.
Thank you. I made those points down. That was really nice, though. That was one big takeaway for me from this class, was those 50 consciousness. Thank you. There's a question from Dear Krishna saying, Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Very nice class as always. The last line of the purport is very interesting. Could you please elaborate a bit more?
Last point of the purport.
The last line.
Is the last line. It is the glory of the pure devotee that only he can bring about service from the affectionate Lord. I'm glad you brought this point up. Maybe Krishna had you ask this question for a good reason. But I read the purport also. It is the glory of the pure devotee that only he can bring about service from the affectionate Lord. The pure devotee serves the Supreme Personality of Godhead 100%. Completely blossoming consciousness, he is only serving, his life is for Krishna. Krishna only knows the pure devotee. The pure devotee has Krishna in mind in everything they do. They do, all of them. And therefore, Krishna also reciprocates fully with the pure devotee. So it is, in fact, as Prabhupada put it, it's the glory of the pure devotee, because the pure devotee is in that situation where he can bring about service from a Supreme Personality of Godhead based on what the pure devotee wants, but the pure devotee also wants something that they want to do in order to glorify the Lord. So the exchange is there, and the whole thing is glorious, because only the pure devotee, we are not, those of us that are not pure, we are going by the instruction of Guru to try to serve and serve well. The pure devotee is already there. The service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is 10%. And therefore, the Lord can then relate in devotion based on the devotees, the pure devotees' own consciousness. So the exchange is wonderful. And therefore, the Lord is also serving back. It looks like that way. The Lord is serving back, but the Lord is actually permitting service to go on from the heart of the pure devotee. So the whole thing is, I'm trying to find the best words. The whole thing is an open, wonderful relationship where even Arjun, getting ready to fight, doesn't ask for the big Narayani army, but asks for the Lord himself, and then asks that the Lord be the chariot driver, and the Lord agrees to do that. So in all types of relationships that the Lord can relate to the pure devotee, even this one, which is called the renunciation type, when he exhibits his renunciation, when he does something menial, or at least when you look at it, menial chariot drivers, positions are considered menial in a war. But because of his love for this devotee, his pure devotee, he would do that. So it is, in fact, the glory in the sense that the pure devotee is a personality that's decided to be, I'm only, the say in their lives, I'm only 100% for Krishna and nothing else. That situation that the pure devotee has makes it possible for him to relate, or him or her to relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and bring about wonderful service from the affectionate Lord. So that the reciprocation is based on the pure devotee's total devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's what we're trying to learn to get to. So that property of the Lord's devotee, pure devotee, that I'm 100% dedicated to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then makes it possible for us, for him to get service, reciprocation service from the Supreme Personality of Godhead too. Hare Krishna. At least that's my understanding. Hopefully that helps you.
Yes, dear Krishna said, beautifully answered. Very, very helpful.
Krishna's,
Thank you so much. I just wanted to, for my understanding, if I'm understanding, he asked a very awesome question. Thank you, dear Krishna. Just for my understanding, if I'm understanding what you're sharing correctly, is that because the devotee is always in consciousness of the Lord, 10%, 24/7, all year round, that just by his devotion, he's able to manifest or do service that's from the Lord. The Lord gives the opportunity for reciprocation. Is that the point? Am I getting that correctly?
Pretty much. It's because of the pure devotee. See, it's the pure devotion. The pure devotion, the mentality of the pure devotee is 100% devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's because of that property that the pure devotee has. We are all trying to serve, but the pure devotee serves, unreservedly. So because that's there, in that consciousness of the pure devotee, then he can bring about the relationship to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's beautiful, it's pure, and it goes back and forth, Lord to him, and him or her, and then he or she to the Lord, like that. Those of us, let's look at the other way. Those who are not pure, we are connecting to Krishna by help from a spiritual master. But we get help. Sometimes we get, as Jeremiah has called, we get hard love. Krishna loves us all the time, but sometimes he has to bring us to a situation that pull our ears a little bit, sometimes slap our wrist a little bit, because we are trying to serve, but we are not doing it purely, and sometimes there are mistakes that are made. Sometimes the ego, false ego jumps in. You don't get that from a pure devotee. The relationship between the pure devotee and the Lord does not have that tinge in it. And so it is the highest, and the Lord can give of himself fully and doesn't have to punish the pure devotee. That's the difference. Doesn't have to punish the pure devotee, or even slap the wrist of the pure devotee, or warn the pure devotee. It just go on. They just go on. And it's a beautiful relationship, even when the pure devotee seems to have so-called difficulty. It's all part of the lila that the Lord is actually taking the pure devotee through to make it happen. What he wants. pure devotee is all for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's all for him.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was a very nice question and very nicely and I explained goosebumps, just realizing it. Thank you so much. We have passed the hour, and I would like to ask devotees that Brett has just posted something. Let me see what he says. Prabhupada, I hear people say that they avoid so and so a person, whether devotee or non-devotee, based off their own assumption that receiving parties of the association are only after their best interest. How can we elevate a devotee's fearlessness to understand that we are just to give association and not worry so much what the other is looking for or expecting? If they're expecting, we should know that a devotee of Krishna has no expectation and other than knowing they gave to their fullest ability. Some devotees are hesitant, especially on Harinam, when out in the material world, but how can we see past this assumption that other people only want gain from us? Powerful question.
So, a very, very interesting question. Some of the things that we need to have as in our consciousness, some of the things, and then the quality is there. I'm thinking about the qualities of the devotee. And the first thing is we have to be humble enough to realize that the Lord will use us as instruments to show mercy when it is needed. And so in every situation that we're in, whether we're dealing with another devotee, whether we're dealing with people in the material world, we have to be in a humble position before the Lord as an instrument to be used. So our prayer should be that way. And when our prayer is that way, that we should be used, Lord, please use me as an instrument to show mercy. When we're dealing with people who are non-devotees, who want something from us, just say, because that part of it, that, when in the material world, how can we see past this assumption that people only want gain from us? The gain that they should get is Krishna consciousness. And we shouldn't worry about, we should be in the consciousness of what Krishna told Arjuna. Do your work, don't worry about the results. That's what we're saying. Do your work, don't worry about the results. Humble position means we are putting ourselves in a situation where Krishna will use us literally as a tool to get across what is best for the person that we're dealing with at the time. One person after another. And since we're not looking for results ourselves, but we're looking only to serve, then whatever situation that happens with the two consciousnesses, humility consciousness and also understanding that the results are going to be determined by Krishna. Those are the two major things that we should have when we're dealing with people and when we're advising. Put ourselves in a situation where we will be used by Krishna. That comes from prayer. So please keep me humble enough and speak through me to this person. Gurudev, please speak through me to this person. That way, then we are being used by Krishna to help in the best situation that can happen when we're dealing with that particular person. Hare Krishna.
Mother Geeta, would you like to add to this question?
It was a perfect answer. Doesn't need any addition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mother
mercy,
Geeta.
Guru's mercy.
I hope that helped Dr. Brett. I know he is at work, so he has to type his questions and answers. But I hope that helped. And you can always follow up with Pariksit on the side. Yes, very powerful. He says that we are an instrument to distribute Krishna consciousness. Thank you, Prabhu, is what he said. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, glories to Krishna Prabhupada. Really.
Yeah. So we thank you all for joining us. Tomorrow morning class, because of the switch. So tomorrow morning will be a regular class at 8 o'clock, and it will be given by Dronacharya Prabhu. So we request devotees to please join us tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Until then, have a wonderful day. Vanchakraptivyascha kripasundabheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Blessed day, devotees. Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Hare Krishna. Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Madhukita.
Krishna. Jai.